Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Didi Got a Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Didi. I appreciate you all for tuning in as always. Breaking news. If you have not heard the news as of yet, there is a very good chance that this Charlie Kirk trial will be dismissed. And this is exactly what we've been saying over the past couple of days, that we felt that this trial could be thrown out simply because of the news that came from the ATF, right? Suggesting that the bullet fragments cannot 100% be traced back to Tyler Robinson's gun, right? The results are inconclusive. And the reason why this is a big deal, because those on the other side are stating the title, the headline of the article is very misleading. It's leading, it says that the bullet does not match, which isn't necessarily true. I agree, right? The news is that it's inconclusive, which means that it could match, it could not match. But that's all that is needed, right? The purpose of the prosecution is to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson pow Charlie Kirk using this 30-06. Well, if this news is coming out that the bullet fragments allegedly found inside of Charlie Kirk have come back as inconclusive, well, that means there's reasonable doubt. That alone does the job. Well, in this video, two Green Berets, Gary from Paramount Tactical, Nate Valhalla VFT, are going to debate this. And we're even going to get to hear why it is that both of them believe that there are other people involved in this alleged assassination. Hit the like button on your way in. I would really appreciate it. Let's get into the debate.
What the Daily Mail headline says is that the bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk did not match the rifle allegedly used by the suspect. Then the first paragraph says this may not match. And then we actually look at the ATF analysis, and what it says is actually it's inconclusive. The other part of this that nobody's talking about is we have a Fox News article right here. And this came out yesterday, basically in response to the Daily Mail. And look, I think hopefully we agree, or to some extent, like the Daily Mail is a UK trash rag, in my opinion. And I think they're reporting on this and the inaccuracies behind it. And the clickbait headline, I think, really covers that. But the Fox News article says the defense has been provided with an ATF summary report, which indicates the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at the autopsy to the rifle allegedly. The other thing that it says right here is that that's not being covered. The testing did positively confirm that the spent shell casing found at the scene matched the suspected murder weapon. So, you know, that's kind of where that's at. And you know, that's where we're at with this. So I don't think that nothing has changed, in my opinion. Me and Nate knew going all the way back to September, that we had a fragmented round that was being reported. Candace Owens reported it two times, one on September 25th and another time in December, right after she talked to Erika Kirk. So look, my take on this is we can talk about additional involvement, and I'm open to that. And that's one of the things that I have said at the beginning of this, that I do not think that Tyler Robinson acted alone. I do think that there's more people involved. And even looking at the social media posts that predicted this, I think there's more people involved, and it could absolutely have foreign ties into it. But what I'm not seeing is evidence that says that Tyler didn't do it. But
okay, so you are seeing evidence that Tyler didn't do it, or a better way to say this is, we have yet to see enough evidence that he did. So in other words, you may see released text messages from the feds, but the feds have already proven over and over and over that they are yet to be trusted, right? The police and their bomb sniffing dogs could not find the weapon. I know there's been a lot of dispute about if they can detect weapons or not, or if they're trained to do so. Yes, we've been able to prove that time and time again on this channel. But even if that's not the case, isn't it so convenient that that the feds were able to find the weapon? But here's the most important part. They didn't even find the weapon on the campus, as you're about to hear Nate state here. But here's another thing that's extremely important. Why don't you talk about the details of the social media post that quote unquote predicted or foreshadowed Charlie Kirk's pow-powing? Why won't you talk about what they said and how the very person, that being Harrison Smith, is tied to InfoWars? Who is it that was around Charlie Kirk that told him that? Not to mention that Candace Owens has suggested, or just flat out said, that Andrew Colvett told her to lay low because her and Tucker Carlson are next. Wait, what? That alone, I'm going to the police if you're Candace Owens. So even that is weird. Here's another very big deal. Since you care so much about weaponry and ballistics, where is the GSR testing? You know, the kickback and the evidence that's supposed to display on the hand or the arm, the wrist, after a weapon has been fired. Where is the proof, the reporting, the evidence that Tyler Robinson was tested for GSR? Where's the video footage of him, quote unquote, turning himself in? These things are important, bro.
Let's debunk the idea that that this new report doesn't mean anything, just from a court of law standpoint, okay? Because what you're seeing people try to say is, oh, well, they can't conclusively match the round. That doesn't actually mean the round's not matched. Okay, well, we're talking about evidence in a court of law. And when you're talking about the word conclusive, it means something in a court of law. It means you have to conclusively match, let's say, a bullet to a gun, DNA to a rifle. Otherwise, that evidence is not going to be permissible in a court of law for the prosecution, so much so that the defense is already adding this in as exculpatory evidence. If you don't know what that means it's going to change the rifle from being evidence for the prosecution to use to find Tyler Robinson guilty to the rifle being used as evidence to prove he is not guilty. But if you cannot conclusively match the rifle to the gun or DNA to whatever evidence, it's no longer going to be permissible evidence for the prosecution in the court of law.
Yes, great point. 2 words: reasonable doubt. It creates reasonable doubt, and that's just the one thing we're talking about. There's many other things that create reasonable doubt in this case that we've repeated many times over the past few months. And a lot of times what you'll typically hear people say, like in my debate the other day with the Miss Lisa Knowles or whatever her name is, who ironically works alongside Gary, even though Gary just admitted that he believes that other people could be involved, including potentially foreign ties, even though Lisa is taking a completely different position, calling everybody anti-Semitic who's entertaining that theory, despite the fact that the evidence is leading us to believe this very thing. But what they typically like to say is, are you an attorney? Have you practiced law? No, but I have worked in a law firm. I've worked alongside attorneys. I've worked on legal cases before. I was an assistant, but that alone gives me insight into how these things work. Not to mention in 2026, you don't even need that. You can look at past cases and do your own research. Clearly something else is going on here.
And we're already seeing that with the defense that wants to now change it to exculpatory evidence, which will actually make the rifle being used as evidence to exonerate Tyler Kirk. Now, if they can actually do that, they may get the trial thrown out beforehand. We don't know about that for sure. But also, the reason why this is so important is not just that, but it's also people are completely forgetting that the murder weapon was not found at the scene of the crime. The murder weapon has to be tracked back to Tyler Robinson. It was found 300-400 meters away on someone else's private property, which means you have to be able to tie that rifle back to the actual shot. You can
Yes, and then the property just so happened to be owned by Palantir.
Do that through 2 ways. You can do it through ballistically matching the round to the rifle used, or the DNA on the rifle matching to Tyler Robinson. Okay, well, there is DNA of Tyler Robinson on the rifle. What's the other problem? There's 6 other people's fingerprints and DNA on that rifle, which is going to make that also not conclusive, because how do you prove
that kid? I've said it over and over and over. They treat us at this point as if we're idiots, as if we can't recognize patterns. What we've seen in so many of these, historical, political powwowings of public figures in American history, especially 3 or 4 of them in particular that I'm sure you all could connect to this Charlie Kirk one, the suspect always looks out of his mind, like he's sedated. And these are typically the signs of MK Ultra, because MK Ultra is not just hooking people up to machines. We've been over this when it comes to the Kanye West story, who has admitted himself that he has been on the MK Ultra, which many of us have already been saying that for years. Another form of MK Ultra is medication. The point of it is to sedate the person. Tyler Robinson looks out of it. He looks like he's not even aware of what's happening. You want me to believe that this person, who also happens to be cross-eyed, was able to take one shot, hit the target from however many feet away, allegedly disassembled the weapon using a screwdriver, leave the screwdriver on the roof, jump off the roof, reassembled the weapon later outside the campus property without a screwdriver. And I know that they've said, oh, that's not an official story. Only Governor Cox said it. Well, Governor Cox said it. Why would he say it? Where would he get that information from?
Tyler was one of the 7 people here whose fingerprints actually took the shot on that rifle. Can you prove that? Maybe you can prove that through, I don't know, video evidence, maybe that we haven't seen yet. But at the moment, the way it's looking is that the rifle could be completely thrown out as evidence in this trial completely.
Well, now I'll say it, because I always wait till the evidence is in. Israel's the prime suspect in Kirk. I first broke that cabinet meeting with Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard, the vice president, the president, and others, when they ordered a cover-up and screamed at Tulsi Gabbard. The president agreed not to investigate foreign involvement. And we said, Obviously, a 30-06 goes right to the neck at 150 yards. And if they can't match the bullet, there's a cover-up. And the media spun this everywhere that the defense claims it. No, the ATF says it's not a 30-06 bullet. So I am disgusted by this. I am horrified by this. And I'm going to try to shut up as much as I can with Nate Cronacchio, who was on with us yesterday, and Gary Melton has been on before, and I'll have them back up soon, maybe this weekend or it's Easter, or next week, a 2-hour show on this, because this is a big deal, okay? We have a cover-up. We have a cover-up of foreign involvement. You got disinformation agents spewing all sorts of stuff about Egyptian planes and Fort Huachuca. We now know, in my gut, it's never wrong to cover up the real evidence, okay? But we know he wasn't shot with a 30-06. We knew it when we saw it. But now, to the credit of the ATF, they say it's not a 30-06 bullet. What is it?
But to be fair, let's back up here, Alex. That's not exactly what it said. It did not say that it didn't match. Definitively, it said that it was inconclusive. Now, the title said that. But when you actually dig into the work, to Gary's point, it said that it was inconclusive, but that doesn't actually change anything to help their case. That still hurts your case because you need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson did this. But I'm going to take it a step further because, again, a lot of you all that's been following the channel know where I rest. I'm about 50-50 still on what actually took place that day. And I don't mean was he actually pow with a gun or a high-powered rifle or an exploding microphone. No, I'm saying, like, is he actually still alive? I've been entertaining that theory, and I'm still entertaining it. I know I may be in the minority still, even more so now. I get it. But we've yet to see any footage of even them arriving at the hospital. That footage should be available for people to see. It would explain why so many people have seemed to lack the emotions that are consistent after a person passes away. It's almost as if they're having to force themselves to be sad. Is that wrong for me to observe that? You said, well, we saw it happen. Did we? What did we actually see that day? What were they doing behind that table after the fact? Why did they move the table? Why did they take the SD card? Was the footage that was later shown to us the actual footage of Charlie, or was that something else? Is there a way for us to test to see if that was AI? Why did Charlie Kirk, some small things that you all would say, okay, now you're nitpicking. No, this is kind of a big deal. Charlie Kirk, I went through dozens of his debates. Charlie Kirk rarely, if ever, wore white shirts to his debates. He wore a white, mostly white, and black shirt that day. Did somebody else give that to him? Was that somebody else's idea? These are the questions that I have. But even more so, this is a really big deal because, again, if it's inconclusive, which the news have come out that it is, they could even get the case entirely thrown out. But even if the case was to move forward, the defense could argue that there's not enough evidence. If you don't even have a weapon, if you can't even tie it back to Tyler Robinson, it's not about getting Tyler Robinson off. If he played any role, then he should be held accountable. But the story that you all are giving us makes no sense. Y'all in the comment section, let me know what you all think. Also, let me know what you think about the new setup. I've been trying to work on getting the mic closer so the audio was better, but also I'm having neck and back problems because I do this full time now and I'm always looking down. I need to be looking up. And so I think this will help. Give me your thoughts, man. I'm Demetrius. I go by Didi. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.
Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.